Are you ready to organize your amazing ideas into a powerful book? You are in the right place at the right time to learn how to write your book. Hi, I'm Joyce Class, and welcome to the Write Hour, nonfiction tips from the Write Coach team. We are so glad you joined us today. Hello, hello. Hope you're having a good day. I had a little echo there a second, making sure it's gone. But I have the beautiful Miss. Now, I've meant to ask you, how do you pronounce your first name? Because I think I know, but just in case I don't.
It's Altovise.
Say it again.
Altovise.
Altovise. That's what I've been saying. I wasn't sure. So, but I'm glad I asked because, it could have been something different. But I've got the beautiful Miss Altovise Pelzer. Is that correct?
Yes,
with me today, and I'm excited because she has some powerful story that she wants to share about not only her life, but how you can share your powerful story too. She started something called Unmuted. That's the book, correct? That you had released recently.
Mm-hmm, it sure is.
And as I mentioned, I sent her some questions that we were going to go over, at the time and the tension that is in it, America and around the world right now. Speaking up and having our voices heard is important right now. And I am so glad to have you here. So welcome.
Oh, I thank you for having me, Joyce. I appreciate the opportunity to share with all of the amazing writers and soon-to-be writers in the community. Hey, guys.
Yes. So yes, we're streaming to the Write My Book group on Facebook as well as to the Write Coach page. And then we're also on YouTube. So wherever you're listening, please leave in the comments. Let us know where you're listening at. And if you have any questions, whether you're watching live or replay, please feel free to leave in the comments. It will notify me. And I or Altovise will either one try to answer your questions. So this is not meant just to be listened to, but we want to be interactive and help you any way that we can. And so I'm glad that you're here. And this is a very important topic about your voice does matter. Your voice matters. So Altovise, tell us a little bit about your journey to writing 19 books, by the way, which is a great accomplishment. And I'm excited to hear, what started that, and tell us a little bit about your journey to getting to the writing part of your journey.
Oh, most definitely. So, hey guys, Altovise Pelzer here, your voice manager. I unmute the voice of women who are ready to speak up about what has kept her silent for way too long. I've been writing since about middle school, but as an introvert, I was always scared to kind of put myself out there, publish it, even though everybody wants to publish their book. They want to publish their story, their poetry. They want to get their voice out into the world. And many of you have some amazing stories, and you're just trying to figure out, how do I get started with that? So first and foremost, I want to knock out one of the things that kind of held me back was thinking that it had to be perfect, right?
Yeah.
The first book took me 8 years to write, meaning I struggled with the title, the book cover, the length. I struggled with everything. And a lot of it was simply me fighting against what I thought it should be, what I thought it should look like, what I thought, was going to be the response from people. And the very first book was titled It's Okay to Cry, which is really significant even in the times we are in right now, because it's still a taboo topic. It's still a topic. We know just recently, Sharon Osbourne and Cheryl Underwood, there was this whole thing of Sharon telling Cheryl not to cry. And so here it is in 2021, we're still going through this same stigma that crying means, some type of inferiority, and it doesn't.
Or weakness. Yeah, and it's not.
Exactly. And so with going ahead and doing that first book, I published the first book in the midst of being homeless. It was literally, it took me maybe about 30 days to get it taken care of, get it published and out into the hands of people. And the title, It's Okay to Cry, even though it scared me to publish a book, that title, can I tell you that I'm absolutely glad that that was the title of the book, because I've gotten so much feedback. And like I said, even now we're still having this discussion. I still had people who reached out to me recently who said, oh my goodness, your book is back in the news. Like, your book is back in thoughts, with discussion. And it's been amazing. So I wanted to make sure that we shared that piece of it, take the expectation off of it, take the limitations off of it, because you don't know just how far this book will go. You don't know the impact that it will have on people, and you don't know how far out this conversation from your book will still be one that's relevant. So for me, I published the book in 2016, and here we are in 2021, and it's still very much relevant. So
I can relate. It took me 4 years to write my first book, and there was a lot of perfectionism, but there was also a lot of, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I don't know where to start. And so I totally relate to what you're saying there, and I get it. Well, tell us what inspired you to encourage women to share their voice, because I know you have a story that I don't even know that I've heard all of it. I think I've only heard little bits and pieces of it. So I'd love to hear what you can tell us today about it. And I'm sure it's in one of your books, correct?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. So that first book is actually about the journey I went through after finding out that my girls had been molested. We moved from Philadelphia to Maryland, and it was one heck of a journey. At the time, I had not told anybody that I myself had been molested as a child, and I was attempting to help my children kind of go through something that I had not even healed from myself. And so in a heated discussion with my oldest daughter about trust, I kind of blurted it out that I had been molested as a child. And it was the first time that I had ever told anyone that this had happened to me. It was my Me Too story. And, we hear about all of the different Me Too stories, and we hear about, well, the question is asked, what took her so long to say something? Why didn't she, say something in the moment? And even though it happened to me when I was a child, I never said anything, because there was this thought that I had to protect my mother, who at the time I wasn't living with. And so when we got back reunited, I did not want to tell her, because she had been doing, school and working and trying to build a better life for us, because she was a single mother. And so there was this, even as a child, this desire to protect her. And she went to the journey never knowing.
Yeah, you didn't want her to feel bad for what had happened to you.
Exactly.
And isn't that sad? I mean, think little you, that you feel that need to protect. I mean, I don't think it matters what age that happens to you. There's always this need that you've got to protect somebody, or not share it for whatever reasons, because the family, it'll scar the family.
Exactly.
But you're the one that was hurt, because I have a cousin that happened to, and it was a family member on the other side of the family, not our side that we're related on. And I just, same thing. She kept quiet for many, many, many years, and it's tough. It's very tough. But continue on. So you're helping your girls. Did you go to look for help at this point for yourself?
Took me a while to actually go and seek help. And even when I think about what I dealt with as an adult, it was still like I tend to hold things back because I want to protect the people around me. I don't say everything because I want to protect people to a certain degree. And I had to kind of break that habit, because it is a habit, which means that it can be changed. It can be changed. And so taking the therapy sessions, taking the self-work that I had to do, and saying, why is it that I don't always come out and tell people when I'm hurting? Why is it that I don't always tell people, when something's going on with me? Why is it that when somebody attacks me mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, I don't always speak up? I had to really go in and say, not only what is keeping me from speaking up, but how do I break that?
Right.
That's like a huge thing, being able to make that transition to being able to say, you know what, enough is enough. I'm taking ownership of who I am. I'm taking my power back.
And was that it? Was that it? Is that you were giving your power away? I mean, or
that's ultimately what it was. Because when we allow ourselves to make decisions based on what we think somebody will do, say, what we think will be somebody's reaction, we're giving that person and their reaction the power over my actions.
Right. I love that, and it reminds me today there was somebody posted something on Instagram, and it's an excellent question, and it says, "Are you putting someone else in charge of your happiness, success, joy, peace, or comfort while they don't even care what you are doing?" Is that not a powerful question we need to be asking?
It is. That is a very powerful question.
So I like that. I think I took a screenshot of it, but who are you putting in charge of your happiness? If it's not you, who is it? So I absolutely love that part. So how did you start to heal, and how did you help your daughters heal?
So for them, it was trying to create a space to where they can be open about whatever it was that they were feeling at the time. It was hard because part of that meant being vulnerable. Part of that meant if they said something I did not like, I couldn't just shut down completely. I had to own what they were saying to me.
Yeah.
And as a parent, that is one of the hardest positions to be in, especially because growing up, there was no parent saying, I want to know your feelings. There was no parent saying, no, it was you do as I say, you shut up, you sit down, you go over there and you figure it out. And I think
and I think that was that generation too.
Exactly.
Because we're probably close to the same age, and there was no huggy feely, oh, I'm so sorry, what happened to you today, baby? There was I don't remember ever getting that, and I had some tough times growing up too myself, not that kind of thing, but just with other children, and I don't ever remember that kind of conversation. I learned to just self-soothe, like, okay, go cry in the corner and work through the feelings myself, so.
Exactly. I even remember when my grandmother passed away, and this is just how the generation was, guys. I mean, I remember sitting at the funeral and I was crying my eyes out because me and my grandmother were so close, and she was actually the inspiration for why I started writing. That was always what she had influenced me to do, was to write out how I felt. And I was bawling my eyes out at the funeral, and someone walked up to me and said, it's okay, she's in a better place, she's no longer in pain. And I just looked at the person and rolled my eyes. That wasn't why I was crying. And this is weird, guys, but that wasn't even the reason why I was crying. My mother was, she was, oh my goodness. So she had a high percentage of Indian. And so my grandmother had long, I mean, down to her behind hair. Beautiful hair, and it was salt and pepper. And that was the grandmother I grew up with. That was the grandmother I remembered. And people not thinking, when you give somebody the picture for them to do their makeup and their hair, they do it according to the picture. Well, I never knew that person.
Mm-hmm.
That I wasn't around when she was that person. And so they had her hair dyed all black in like these Shirley Temple curls. And I was horrified. I was mortified. What did you do to my grandmother? And nobody asked me if I was okay. Nobody asked me, exactly why I was crying. They didn't care. Immediately, they just thought, oh, it's because she missed her grandmother. No, it's because I don't know who the heck this woman is in the casket that you have me looking at. That's not my grandmother.
Yeah. How old were you?
And I had to be about 12.
Yeah.
And like, I remember braiding my grandmother's hair. I remember brushing my grandmother's hair. So to come in and that's the image before me, I was mortified. And you're telling me not to cry. Again, another not cry moment. Don't cry. She's in a better place. That's not even why I'm crying. It was horrible.
Yeah. That I have another cousin who's very doesn't like to cry, and she was told often not to, that she had to be the strong one. Her father was murdered when she was 21, and she was told that she needed to be strong for her mother and not to cry. And I was like, this was your dad. What moron said that?
Tell somebody that.
And I mean, I'm sure it was probably one of my lovely relatives that they are known for speaking without putting a filter on. Like, if it pops in the head, it comes out of the mouth, and it's like, sometimes you just want to look at them and go, you might want to retract that and go think about that a second.
Did you really think about that?
Yeah,
you said it.
Yeah, I don't think you took that through the filter of, maybe this is not the best thing or the best time to say
it. Or the best time to say it, right?
Yeah. Some people. So, part of your healing, with the girls, how did that go with their healing? How did you help them?
They healed a lot better and quicker than I did. But it was the environment change was a major thing. And being outside of the environment, having different experiences, having other people around them that they could talk to, that were pouring into them, that loved them, that encouraged them. That was it. I know that if we would have stayed in Philadelphia, we would have had a completely different outcome for each of them. And I'm thankful that we were able to experience, even with the bumpy roads, even with things not going 100% the way we wanted it to. I'm thankful for, what occurred and what transpired, because guess what? It could have been worse.
Yeah.
And there is somebody right now that's their story. Their story is, it was worse than that. It was, it wasn't a good experience at all for them. And so that is really significant when I look at their journey. And the journey's not over. There's still more healing to be done. There's still more conversations to be had. And
how old are they now?
So now they are, oh my goodness, 17 and about to be 17 and about to be 19.
Oh wow. So one is getting close to legal adult, and the other one is,
so my youngest is 17. And then I have an 18-year-old who is actually my youngest sister. I have custody of her. And then I have my oldest daughter is about to be 19, and my son will be 21 this year. So,
wow, just wow.
Like, you blink twice and you're like, where did it go?
I know. My son turns 24 this year, so I can. Yeah. I tell, it's like, and I got pictures over here on my desk of him when he was 2. So it's like, How did that?
How did that happen? We missed something in between.
Exactly. So this obviously helped you to help other women.
Yeah.
So how can people sharing their voice help others? And I know you mentioned you were an introvert too. How did that work being an introvert, that you decided to speak up and help others?
Oh, it was like pulling teeth. So as an introvert, it was hard.
Mm-hmm.
For one, when people think of an introvert, they think of somebody being shy, somebody being reserved, and they don't see the positives in what it is to be an introvert.
Right.
So I had to learn the positive side of being the introvert and what that meant for me. And it tapped into me being able to help other women. So, for instance, one of the things is, as an introvert, I can usually pretty much read the room, right?
Right.
I can tell you like pretty much who's in the room, who I want to connect with in the room. But also it led to me being a podcaster, because one-on-one conversations are everything for me.
Yes.
And that was how I was able to build my network and connect with other people. And people were able to see my consistency. Live streaming was one of the hardest things that I had to do. I don't know. There's something about that go live button. Scary as heck, y'all. It's freaky. So where you like shake and tremble when it's time for you to press the button. But in pressing that button, I was able to connect with women who, when they heard my story, they were like, that's me.
Yeah.
And that was it. That was the light bulb moment. It was like, oh, I'm not alone. They're not alone. Let's see how we can go ahead and support each other.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you've encouraged these women, because I think you have people who blog on your website, right? That they share their stories, as I was looking through some of those. And I love that you bring women together to share their stories and their voice so that we can help each other. Because here's the thing, a lot of women like to cut each other down. That's not my thing. I want to build each other up. And I love that that's what you're doing, is that you've given women a safe place that they can say, hey, this is what's happened to me, or this is how I can encourage you on your journey. And you can lift people up with that. And I love that part of that. So how can sharing their voice help others? We've talked about that, but I know that this is something that you're really big on. And so share with writers, or like you said, wannabe writers, how their voice can help others.
So one of the most significant things that I have found in this journey is sharing my voice allows me to let someone else know that they are not alone.
Yes.
We are in a society that has made it, they've kind of like highlighted and like overemphasize this whole being alone, a solopreneur, doing, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps and all of these things. But the reality is we were never meant. We weren't meant to be by ourselves. That's why there's so many people that can relate to what you've been through and they want to support you. Here's where it gets a little murky, is when we first start, we expect the people closest to us to be our highest supporters.
Right.
That's not always the case. And it can be a turn off for people.
And you need to understand, the people closest to you, I mean, they don't owe you anything. So if they don't support you, that's okay.
That's okay.
Love them anyways, because maybe it's not for them what you're doing. You need
not that they don't love you. It's right. We get it crossed in our minds that because they're not supportive of us, they don't love us. And that's not it. That's not the case. They're not supportive of you, possibly because they're just not your target audience. They're not supportive of you because they may not even fully understand what it is that you're doing, or, you know, what it is you're trying to do. And even when we think about entrepreneurship, we're like, oh, our family doesn't buy from us. Well, can we be honest? Sometimes you've kind of bounced around from thing to thing. They're kind of trying to figure you out. That's okay.
Right.
It's okay. But there's always going to be somebody that wants to support you. And I found that along the way is I don't have to do the journey alone. I've had women and men who have supported my journey. And I can give an example. When I first moved to Maryland and started going to a church here, I connected with a gentleman by the name of Michael Gibson. Shout out to Michael. And he's an awesome man. He plays the congos and like at church and all types of stuff. Amazing father, amazing husband. Like, he's awesome. And I remember him saying to me one day, don't get stuck behind the desk. And at the time I was like volunteering and working at the church and doing administrative work, but you could tell that it wasn't my passion. It wasn't really what like excited me, but
it didn't light you up.
Exactly. And he knew that I wrote poetry. He knew that I wrote. He didn't know that I would be here years and years later, but he knew that there was not my end zone. It was not the end place to be. And so I always held on to that. And when I started, you know, doing business and doing programs, he still supported me. He would share out my stuff. He would share out the books. And then he actually decided to say yes to being a part of my first anthology, which is A Stage of Their Own. That came out in 2019. And he said, I'm going for it. He said, all right, I'm saying yes. And he went, he was a part of it. His poem was in the book. And I was so just like humbled by that. But it opened up something for him. And so since then, he has published 2 books.
Oh, wow.
And that just warms my heart so much, because here it is. He's the person that inspired me and encouraged me. Even before I got here, he kept encouraging me. And then in turn, I was able to go back and encourage him to be able to do something else. And he was able to go ahead and publish his books. And that's just like a tip of the iceberg of what he's been able to do so far. But man, you never know where, like, who you're going to connect with and touch. You never know who you're going to inspire and what they'll be able to do. And so his first book is Life After Seth. And it's so significant because his first child passed away. And so the first book is a book of poetry. And one of the poems was actually inspired by one of the live streams that I did. And so that just like all of it was
I mean, don't you love that? And so I love this. You know, our writing isn't just for us. Exactly. And it's not just for that one person. There's that ripple effect of you touched someone with your writing who then decided, you know what, I really like this. And now he's touching other people with his writing. Or your live stream, you know, touched him and now it's touching other people. So I love how you can really hone in, and you can be so focused sometimes and realize and forget there's this whole ripple effect going on that you don't even realize until after your book is released. So I love that. Well, and so we're talking about voice. And I'm sure since you've written 19 books, you're well aware of this. There's your voice that we share when we write. And a lot of people don't know what voice is. But for me, voice is, you want your book to sound like you. Yes. Like something you would say, something you would share, your humor. Just this morning, I read a Facebook post from a friend of mine who husband passed away about 4.5 years ago. And she remarried within a year to someone, and all of us were kind of shocked, but she never really shared her story because she felt like it would be disrespectful to her husband that had died. And today is their 4th anniversary together, and she shared their story. And I love, she should be a writer. It's like I could hear her sharing this story, like she was sitting here talking to me. I could hear her humor and everything, and the powerful emotion of how much she still misses and loves her first husband. She'd been with him since she was 15, and he died when she was 35. So, talk to us about how did you find your voice, or how do you feel people can find their voice in their writing? Because that's very important. I mean, think of any famous writer, and a lot of times you could read maybe just a paragraph or two and kind of tell who wrote it if you've read their stuff a lot.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. So one of the things that really stood out for me when it came to finding my voice was that I had to own my story.
Yes.
And just like Beyonce say, flaws and all, I had to own my story. And even as I progress and continue to tell the story as it changes, because it's not over,
Right.
It's owning your story. This is one of the hardest things for a lot of people to do, because we go through shame. We go through, what ifs, what if somebody doesn't like the story? What if somebody challenges the story? What if, somebody questions, what it is that I'm saying? And the potential is there for all of those things to happen. But we forget the what ifs that are on the other side. What if my story changes somebody's life? What if my story puts up, the opportunity for somebody else to live their best life ever? And so I had to own my story, and then I had to have a level of comfortability in sharing my story.
Yes.
That is so hard in the beginning, because it may mean that you tremble in your voice. It may mean that your body is shaking. It may mean that you're sweating. It may mean that you cry. It may mean so many different things. And when we're telling our story, we've come up against so many reasons and people along the way that have kind of, devalued our story, that it makes it difficult. So we have to go back and say, I value the story that I have. I value what I've lived, because it is my personal experience.
Right.
I value that. And I cannot control how somebody else sees my story.
Right.
I can't. I can control how I present my story and the best ways that I share my story, but I cannot control how someone else sees my story. And when I take that expectation off of myself, I stop perfectionism. I stop trying to critique myself, and I just share the story. For some, it may be sharing it with one person. For others, it may be getting on stage and sharing it with a room full of 1,000 people. But we think about the Lisa Nichols when she first shared her story of, not being able to buy diapers, not being able to take that money out of the ATM. The first time she shared that, I'm sure she was shaking.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's many people that would say, well, why would you even tell people that? Why would you even want to share that? That's not something to be proud of. And it's not that you're proud of it. It's just that you're owning that this is a part of your journey.
Right.
And it was a part of her journey. When we think about Tyler Perry sleeping in his car, it was a part of his journey. You have to understand the significance of what you have been through. And so that was one of the biggest things. And so for some, we're able to do a self-evaluation and handle that on our own with our own two hands.
Right.
There's some that need a coach to take us through that. There are even others who need therapy to kind of be able to own that story. And so you really have to take the temperature of where you are and say, you know, what do I need to be able to own this story, to be able to say it boldly and unapologetic that this is my journey, this is my life, this is what I've been through. And, you know, I'm going to tell it, you know, however I need to tell it. Now, does that mean that sometimes you're gonna be snotting and doing the ugly cry? I've done it on live. I've done it. I've done events and had the ugly cry going on especially in the beginning.
Because those emotions are still raw.
Exactly.
And they're still healing. But as you heal and as you share, I think that's a part of the healing process, don't you?
It is. It's very, and even when we think about, for some, it may not be telling the story and speaking it, but in writing it, it's still that same healing process.
It is. It is. When you get that out, I remember when my son was young, and it was the first time in my life finally slowed down enough like I could process it. And there was a lot of baggage that I really hadn't dealt with. And when I started journaling about it and exploring personal development and learning about myself, it really helped me to have that perspective of, oh, that's why I was always chasing that or doing this or doing that. And when you see it, then you do give yourself power, because then you're like, I don't have to do that. I was making a choice that I wasn't even aware I was making of, because like you were talking about earlier, it was a habit.
Yeah.
It was a habit I was used to. It was a comfort zone, but it's not where I have to be or where I have to stay. So I love that. And I love where you're saying owning your story. So did you start sharing verbally more before you wrote things down, or did you like to write your story out more?
So I loved to write it out more, because that was my favorite way to communicate, was to go ahead and just write it out, put it out there. And then, you know, that was it for me. That was everything for me. But at some point, you know, after that conversation with my oldest daughter, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to be the face of my brand. I had no idea what that meant. And as an introvert, I really didn't know what that meant. But I said, you know what? I'm going to rebrand my business. I had tried doing other little entrepreneurial businesses, and I tried doing the MLM. I tried Avon. I don't know why, because I bought more stuff than I sold, but
most things like that is that's what I've done. I usually buy more than I sell.
Right. And then as an introvert, I really didn't like networking with people as much. So I hadn't at that point found my niche when it came to networking. So I don't know what I was thinking at that point, but I tried it. But it was, you know what, I gotta go ahead and people need to hear my voice. And even when we think about the power of voice, right now we have Clubhouse. Clubhouse is a huge, amazing tool. Yes. And it's all audio. Everybody's scrambling to try to find their way in, but it's all audio, and people are absolutely loving it. But guess what? Even before that, we had podcasts, and they've been hitting it hard. Certain, in different areas of the world, people are listening to podcasts. I think the top place that people are listening to podcasts is, I want to say it's in Korea. And then second, I think it's Korea. Like the United States is like the top 5, y'all. It's not even like the top 3, I don't think. Like, so it's bananas. It's bananas, right? And it's all audio, listening to someone's voice, listening to the inflections, listening to, you could hear the passion in somebody's voice. And before that, it was radio.
Yep, and talk radio. Yeah.
And talk radio, right? We remember Blog Talk Radio, and everybody that whole blog. This is Blog Talk Radio.
And we can say it in stereo.
Everybody remembers that. And then we had radio before that. And even when it goes back to the first radios that were out there, no, I'm not that old, people. I've heard stories.
We all watched the Waltons, right?
Right. So, they would sit on the floor and listen to stories, listen to what was going on in the news. They weren't watching TV. They were listening to somebody speak. And audio is such a powerful tool.
It is.
It connects.
And the other great thing about audio is you don't have to get fixed up for it. So
come on now.
That's one thing that I do love about Clubhouse. You could be in your pajamas and your underwear or naked and nobody knows.
You still give great insight and tips and wisdom.
Yes, I have found some very great rooms that are out on Clubhouse. And I mean, that's actually how I met Altovise, was in a Clubhouse room for podcasting. And so, you know, if you haven't checked out Clubhouse, I've got some invites. You have to be invited right now. I'm assuming they're still doing that. I've been kind of out of touch the past couple of weeks with everything going on in my life, which we'll get to later. But I do love Clubhouse. So I do recommend that if you are whatever topic, because they've got all kinds of topics out there. Like anything you can imagine, there is a Clubhouse room for. And there's probably lots of Clubhouse rooms for it. And if not, make your own and start one. You know. So, but I love that. Well, and I love that you found your voice not only, you know, personally and emotionally, but then also in your writing. You found your voice. And I know one way you do, like, I love that you said that, you know, owning your story and sharing it, whether that's writing it down or telling a friend, but keep saying it, keep writing. That's how you find your voice in writing too, is by you keep writing. The more you write, the more it's going to come out. And again, let go of that perfectionism. Be yourself. Now you want things when you're putting it out to the world, you want it to be as polished and as nice as possible, but you want it to be your voice. Have you ever heard of the book, It's All Over but the Shouting, by, what's his name? Rick Bragg. Yeah. Talk about voice, right? Like I've never heard the man in my life, but reading that book, I could just imagine what he sounds like. You know, and that's what you want your reader to feel. You want them to feel your humor, your pain, your whatever it is that you're relaying to them. You want them to feel that. Exactly. And feel like you're sitting there talking to them. Those are some of the best books, is when you sit down to read it. And it's like that you feel like the writer is sitting right next to you sharing the story. And that's
why it's so interesting, because when you hear audiobooks, you always get more of a positive, you know, response from people. And they're like, oh, they read their own audiobook. And, you know, because you can, even if they have somebody else read it, you can hear their voice.
Right.
And that person is going throughout the story and reading it. Like, it is so amazing.
Yes, exactly.
You're like imagining them sitting at the table and you're just like, tell me more. Tell me more.
I need more. I know. Well, speaking of tell me, so tell us a little bit about your writing time. I always love to ask other writers this, because your tips or what works for you might work for somebody else, you know, and we all work in different ways. So do you write at a consistent time, or do you write daily, or what are some things that work for you and that don't work for you?
So I always give this tip, because a lot of the women that I work with are women who have been through domestic violence. They've been through abuse. They've been through some big trauma. And so sometimes for them, sitting down and writing it out is not always the best option. So I tell them a great option is to talk it out.
Yeah.
And woo-wee, they say, what do you mean talk it out? Okay, so I'm not telling you to go sit down with somebody and talk to them and have them write it down, but record yourself. Just allow yourself to talk about a certain scenario or situation that's happened that you want to put into the book. Record yourself. You can do either audio or video. Record yourself and have somebody transcribe it. It makes it a lot simpler. And again, we already talked about how this is a part of that healing process.
It is.
My clients know that I've had them in the midst of something going on. I've said, okay, go live. If it's not something that they can go live with, I've said, record yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It also gives you a way to document where you are. And everything you record may not end up in the book, and that's okay. Right. The same way with everything we write down may not end up in the book.
Right.
But it gets you into a flow, and it gets you into a space of being able to share. Mm-hmm. And again, my clients repeat it often. Even if you tell your story while your lip is quivering, you're still telling your story, and that's valuable.
Exactly. Exactly. So do you write daily, or when do you like to write?
So I don't write daily. I am that sporadic writer. I'll have something that'll pop up in my head, and I'll go ahead and write it out and plan it out, depending on what it is. Right now, I have so much content that I don't think I have to write anything new for a while. But I have quite a few books that are, in the oven baking right now, where
marinating.
They're already in there, and I'm like, okay, it's now I need to go ahead and kind of strategically place these so that way they can be published, along the way. But
right.
That was also one of the ways that I was able to get 19 books out between 2016 and now it's 2021, was because I used that process. I knew that I couldn't always sit down and, be able to type up a book or type up a chapter, but that if I just went ahead and just, recorded myself, that I could probably get a couple chapters done in a little bit less time. So that part was really significant. And then I'm really big, and this is the juice. This is the extra stuff. Mm-hmm. So I'm only telling you guys because you're listening to this episode with Joyce. I'm only telling you that because you're listening to this podcast. Some of you already have content for a book. You have posts that you've been doing. Mm-hmm. You have messages that you've been sending people. You have videos that you already have. And you just need to go and put it in a book.
Yep.
And so repurposing content is also another way that I really tap into. That content, we already have it. You have quotes that you've been putting out. You've been quoting up the world all throughout the pandemic, a whole year. That's a book.
There you go.
Let's go. Reach out to Joyce. That is a journal. That is a book. But because no one ever allowed you to see it in that way, it was never an idea for you. Mm-hmm. It was never an option because nobody showed you that it could be an option. And so some of you already have several books. You just need to get on it and get them published.
Yes, definitely. I love that. So what is your favorite thing to do when you are writing?
Okay, so I am such the weirdo. My favorite thing to do when I am writing, and this is going to sound super weird. I have my little zone of like my little writing zone. So I'll sit on my couch. Sometimes I'm sitting on the floor with my laptop. Mm-hmm. And I have to have Fritos and chocolate. Oh, that's horrible. I'm sorry to all of the health gurus that are listening to this episode. Please forgive me. This is not a regular occurrence. It's probably part of the reason why I gained weight during the pandemic. Not a lot, but it's already coming off. So I promise this is not a regular occurrence. But Fritos and chocolate. And I don't know why that combination works for me. With some peanut M&Ms and some Fritos. And
I love that. Yes. I love both of those.
A great spot on the carpet or a spot on my couch, and I have a coffee table that lifts up so I can lift my laptop up, and I'm good to go. I'll go ahead and write out things for maybe about 2-3 hours, and just go. And then once that 2-3 hours, I can pretty much gauge it because my body goes, yeah, the chocolate and Fritos is wearing off. It's wearing off. It's time for a nap. It's time to go do something else. But that's been my go-to for quite some time, was the Fritos and the chocolate. I don't even know how it started, but that's just
one of those. You've got your salty and your sweet. So there you
go. Exactly. It fits. It works.
I like it. Well, Altovise, this has been awesome. So tell us, what words of advice or encouragement do you have for someone struggling to write their book, or someone maybe trying to figure out their voice? You know, like, I don't know what my voice is. Because I know for some people that's really hard, and I didn't understand it for a long time either, until the more I read books that I liked by people that I liked, the more I could see it. You know, when you, like I said, when you can read a book and you can hear that person talking, because maybe you've heard them on a Facebook Live or a podcast or something, that's when you know the book has been written well. And so what advice or encouragement do you have for people that are seeking that?
So this is my biggest encouragement, is go all in. It's really easy for us to kind of put our pinky toe in. It's really easy for us to kind of feel the water and test the temperature. But I need you to go walk backwards a little bit, couple steps, and jump and cannonball into it. Simply because we are our worst enemy, and we question ourselves and second guess it. And sometimes that's all you need. I know the water is cold, but it will warm up. Oh, yes. And the same thing happens when it comes to you writing. And the equivalent of you doing a cannonball when it comes to writing is doing a brain dump. No editing, no trying to make it sound pretty. No, stop the sentence structure. Stop that. Just brain dump. Just get it all
out. Yes. Exactly. I call that a free write. Same thing. Just get it out of your head. I love that.
Get it out of the head. That is I'm just going to cannonball into the water, and whatever happens after that, what happens after that? Some of you may have a oops moment where your bathing suit top comes off. I mean, it happens. You just put it back in and then you keep swimming. Keep swimming. But I need you to just cannonball it, guys. Don't second guess it. And I need you to reach out. You know, one of the biggest things that I've seen is that sometimes you just need an ear. You just need somebody to say, you got this. You need somebody to say, no, that's not a good idea. Exactly. You need somebody that's going to be unbiased. And if that means that, they need to kick you off the cliff, my clients tell me all the time, you're a cliff pusher, coach. And I go, me? I'm sweet. I would never push you off a cliff. And they're like, no, you push us off cliffs regularly.
Well, and sometimes you have to get people going the direction they need to go. Come on.
But you didn't die. You have a parachute, so you're okay.
Exactly. You're good. You're good. You are good. Yes, I love that. So go all in, definitely. And I totally agree with you. And the free writing, don't worry about making it perfect. That's the first part of writing, is just starting and getting those ideas out of your head. And then you can work on structure. And those kinds of things. And that's something that there's something I have called the 6 steps to organize your ideas and start your book now. And that is at therightcoach.biz/6 steps. I'll put that in the comments here. But I love how you put all of that to help people. And I wanted to remind people too, that if you, Oh, here. I'm sorry. I can't talk. I was trying, but it's not working. And type. Chewing gum and walking, not my gift.
It's okay. It's all right.
So here it is. But if you want some help getting started, this will help you get started. And I think I spelled everything right there. Yeah. But the other thing, when she was talking about doing audio, and I love that idea, because especially some people are more audio people. They want to speak it out. That comes easier for them. And there's something called Descript, DESCRIPT.
I am in love with Descript.
Isn't Descript fabulous? There's so much you can do with it. I mean, if you have a podcast that you need to edit words out of, that's the place to do it. Or if you want to make a PDF, a transcript of anything, of your podcast or any audio, or videos. They do videos too. And you can use descript.com. I have no affiliate with that. It's my favorite. And obviously Altovise loves it too. So definitely do that. But I am so glad that you're here. And I have something that I have to share too. So a lot of people, I think I've mentioned it, and some people know, but I haven't said a whole lot publicly on Facebook. But I am going through a divorce, and I'm moving in a month from today, actually, to Waynesville, North Carolina. And so I am going to give the live stream and the podcast a break for a little while I get my life situated and organized, because there's a lot of moving parts going on, and I'm just trying to simplify my life right now. And then I will come back. I don't know exactly when yet. I haven't decided. And so because I'm got a lot of things up in the air right now. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to take some time and get it figured out and then come back and let y'all know. But the Write My Book group will be there, and the Write My Book Bootcamp group will be there. And all of that's still going to keep going on. I'm just not going to be doing live streams for a little while. I'm focusing on my clients that I have and helping them. So that's what I've got going on right now in my crazy, exciting world. And I'm looking forward to new adventures in North Carolina and changing places. So like you said, like you did from, was it Philadelphia? You said you were in?
Oh, yeah. Philadelphia to Maryland. Yes. Yeah. And it was a huge shift going from city life to, they have tractor pulls, y'all.
Where were you in Maryland?
I'm in Elton. I'm in this little itty bitty town. And so it's like all this farmland. We're
is it near Baltimore, or where is it near?
No, I'm literally on the border of Newark, Delaware. I'm about
okay, you're on the other side.
Yeah, I'm right all at the top.
Do you know where McHenry, Maryland is?
I've heard of it, yeah.
That's where my parents grew up.
Wow.
I got a lot of family there. But yes, it's a little itty bitty town. You know the part of Maryland that's like this, that little square in West Virginia? They're kind of like that was in the middle of that is McHenry. Beautiful, beautiful little area, but I think,
beautiful area. But I'm like,
I thank them all the time that I didn't have to go there.
I do. And the first time, you know what? Because I have to share this really quickly.
Go ahead.
I did the county fair in Philadelphia is completely different than the county fair here. The county fair in Philadelphia is rides and food and games. The county fair here is cows and tractors and goats. And I was so utterly confused. And he had cowboys.
Where are the rides, right?
And I was like, I've never seen a real cowboy. Joyce, it was absolutely hilarious. We went and we were volunteering that particular summer, and I'm sitting there and I'm watching the cowboys come through, and I'm just like, I've never seen a cowboy face to face. And they're like, yeah, we drove up from such and such. And I'm like, you drove here to...
Now I have to say, Garrett County, Maryland has a nice county fair. They did when I was growing up. They had rides and games and all that good stuff. And they're not, I mean, it's pretty very, very rural. I mean, it's more of a tourist town, but I mean, it's still very, very rural. But there are a lot of, because there's Deep Creek Lake is there in the Wisp, if you've heard of either one of those. That is what's there now, and a lot of people, from what I understand, the Baltimore area will come up there for, vacation rentals and that kind of thing, and hanging out.
Oh yeah. I'm like, okay, wow, that was interesting to me. I had never, that wasn't, like I said, and they still had rides and games and stuff, but I went walking through and I was like, that's a tractor, and they have a tractor pull. Okay, that's a real thing. And then those are cows that I hear, and I went over and they were cows. They were
yeah. Oh, I tell you, I grew up in the suburbs outside of Atlanta. So, but I've lived in Albany, Georgia, which is Southwest Georgia, a very rural area. And I had, I always consider myself like a little bit of a country girl. I like the country, somewhat.
Right. It's an experience.
My hairstylist there, she said, "You're not a country girl, you're a city girl." And I said, "Well, not really, because I've never lived like downtown in the city kind of thing." I said, "I'm more of a suburb girl. Let's put it that way."
There we go. We can let it ride that way.
I'm a suburb girl because, like, I've never, like, you put me in downtown Atlanta or New York, I'd like it for about a day, maybe 2.
Yeah, I don't think I can ever go back to city living.
Yeah, but I would never want to live there permanently. I need
to visit every once and again.
Yeah, and where I'm moving to is a very small town, and our apartment complex is in this middle of this part of this farm, and there's a school right next to it, and so I love it. But you've got mountain views 360 around the apartment, and so I'm so excited about that because I love the mountains. But, well, thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us before we hop off here?
Hey, those of you that stuck around, thank you for staying around for all the banter and the laughter at the end. We appreciate you. I would love to connect with you on Instagram at Altovise Unmuted. It's at Altovise Unmuted. Check me out, connect with me, and listen. Let me know that you heard me over here with the Joyce. Why? Because guess what? I want to thank you so much for listening. And I always like to shout people out because that's what it's about. It's about taking it to another level and support that. Hey, look, share it out, engage, comment. If it wasn't the episode that you thought it was going to be, it's okay to let me know that. That's fine. But hey, you're here now.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say, they can connect with you on the show notes and the link that's in this post. There's all of her links and her website. Go read some of the stories on her website. They are beautiful and powerful. And I love that you are doing that for women. So it's so great to get to know you a little better, Altovise. And thank you for all that you've shared with us today. I'm sure it's had an impact on many people and those watching the replay as well. So, and if you have questions or anything for me or Altovise, please leave it in the comments, and we'll see you next time.